Hello there LMU fans, welcome back to another video, and in this one I'm just going to cover a few things that I haven't gone over in some of my other guides to the game. Namely, we're going to look at race starts again, just to go over those in a little bit more detail and a little bit more clarity. We're going to take a look at the MFD and I'll go through some force feedback stuff as well. This is from a recent stream, a race start I did at Fuji, and the first thing to say really is be ready to go. When you get the announcement,
formation lap has started.
You want to engage first gear, and as you can see there, I've got the speed limiter on. Now basically what you want to do is keep up with that little green section that's displayed on the track there, and I'm thumbing the speed limiter on and off to keep up with that section. I get a little bit further behind than maybe would be ideal. You also want to keep in line with the car ahead. You've got to start over your grid box, so make sure you're in line with the car ahead. It will give you a little notification if you go too far offline. So you can see I'm holding the pit limiter on there. We'll get a little notification come up any moment. There it is.
Ready to start.
So we just want to leave the pit limiter on. The throttle is absolutely buried. And then when we go green, we flick the pit limiter off and you're away for your race start.
Good starts all around.
Okay, so I've just pulled over here during a private practice session at Spa and we'll go through the MFD. Now the first one is fairly straightforward, it's just your relative to other cars. During a race, this will show cars that you are lapping in blue and cars that are lapping you in red. The next one is also fairly self-explanatory. It's just the session information basically, what time it is, the weather forecast, track. It also tells you how many track cuts you've had. You see that I've had a 0.75 one, and if it's infinite in practice, but if in a race it would show you, for instance, if there was 5 penalty cuts that you got, it would show that on there as well. The next one is like a mini timing screen, if you like, very useful during practice and qualifying. It shows you a few things, your split, delta and sector times individually. It can show you relative to the 2 nearest cars around you, in this case Earl Bamber and Paul DeResta. It can also show you your current lap against your best lap, against what would be your optimal lap, and also the fastest lap currently in the session. So very useful during qualifying, maybe not so much during the race unless you're interested in how quickly the cars around you are going, but you can kind of generally see that from the hood anyway. The fourth one along here is your tyres and brakes to a certain extent. It gives you brake temperatures, tyre pressures. The ones that you're really interested in, though, to be honest, are just the percentages there, the percentage wear of each tyre, and also the temperatures in the middle there. 61.5 degrees on the front left is the overall temperature of the tyre. You want to monitor that during the race, obviously. Also in the middle there, it's again showing infinite tyres, but it'll tell you how many new sets of tyres you've got during a session. Some sessions and races are obviously limited. The next one then is a little bit more complicated. It's the fuel tab. And it's all to do really with race strategy. And to really show you how this works, I'm going to have to show you some race footage. So we'll jump to that now and go through it. The first thing to notice then during the race is the inclusion of this strategy window on the right hand side. This is basically giving you an estimate of when it thinks you're going to need to pit, in this case lap 22, how much virtual energy you're going to need to put in at that pit stop, in this case 38%, and also how many new tyres you have left. The fuel window though is showing me currently the top line there is how much virtual energy I have left. I've just flicked it up to a +2 lap save target. So this is telling me my target is 21.7 laps, which is about 44 minutes, and an average fuel usage per lap, or an average virtual energy usage per lap, of 4.11%. Now my average at the moment is 20.3, and that's denoted by that red symbol. It's basically telling me that I'm not saving anything like enough fuel on average to do that amount of fuel usage that I require to save 2 laps. My last lap was a little bit better. Now that's only gone yellow. I'm still not saving enough at 4.32% used per lap but it's better than my average. So this tab is really, really useful. If you've got to eke out a couple of laps, you need to do a fuel save, this will tell you exactly how you need to do that, what sort of fuel save you need to make that work. This is also then represented inside the car. There are some purple lights basically at the side of the car. They're flashing red there at the moment. That's actually the TC kicking in. But what they'll do is they'll build almost a virtual bar. There they go. And basically what that's doing is telling you or giving you a countdown to when you need to start to do a lift and coast. Now, there are other ways of saving fuel, but lift and coast is often the most efficient way of doing it. And what those lights are doing, they will build up to the point where it's saying, now release the accelerator and coast into the corner before you brake. So that's how to use that tab during a race to set your lift and coast, if you like, to set your fuel save during the race and give yourself perhaps a faster race strategy. Your next one is basically just your in-car electronics or setups, traction control, anti-roll bars that you can adjust on the fly, brake bias, brake migration, motor maps, regen levels, that sort of thing. Now, really, ideally, if you can, you should have all of these mapped to your wheel so you can adjust these without having to go into this menu. But if you can't do this, this is where they all are basically, fully adjustable, very easy. Again, fairly straightforward. The final tab is to do with your pit stops, basically. It's where you can choose to change tyres, set your fuel ratios, how much virtual energy you want to take at the next pit stop too. You can also, a little bit further down, change your wing and your tyre pressures. For longer races, you can replace the brakes. The thing to really talk about here, though, is the virtual energy. Basically, the amount of fuel that you're going to put into the car. Now, the percentage here and the number of laps that is going in, the amount of fuel that you're putting in, this is the amount that you will leave the pit with. So right now, I've got 18.5 laps of fuel in the car. Say, for instance, I need another 3 laps to complete the race, right? If I put that to 16%, it's not going to put any fuel in the car. It'll just basically tell me it's not possible to take fuel out of the car during a pit stop. Now, if I want 3 extra laps on top of the 18.5 that I already have, what I need to do is set it to 21 laps or even 22. So actually, probably what I would do at the next pit stop is just take another 100%. That means I'm going to leave the pit with 22 laps of fuel. If I put anything less than 18.5% or 18.5 laps, sorry, in, even if I just say 17, it's not going to put any fuel in for me. The amount of fuel that is shown here, the amount of virtual energy that you put in, is the amount that you want to leave the pits with. Finally, then, I just want to talk a little bit about force feedback. Now, I find force feedback's a very personal thing. There's not necessarily a right way to set it up. There's probably very much a wrong way to set it up, but there's no real right way to do it. Now, Le Mans Ultimate has quite a direct force feedback, and it can also feel quite harsh and grainy at times. Now, I personally quite like that, to be honest with you. It's something about the game. I think it immerses you more in it, having that real heavy force feedback and that real sort of direct input through the wheel, and it almost makes my rig shake at times. It's probably a bit OTT, to be fair. But there are ways and means, if that's not quite your thing, of dialing it out. Now, probably the best way of doing this, the easiest way of doing this, actually, is if you just go into Steam. If you find Le Mans Ultimate in your library on the right-hand side here, right-click on it, go to Properties, and then where are we? We are in Controller. If you disable Steam input there, now, in theory, that means that there is a direct link between the game and your controller, so it should be more direct. But for me, actually, what it kind of serves to do, or it seems to do anyway, the Le Mans Ultimate, is just to dampen things down a little bit. It just quietens the wheel down. There's certainly a lot less graininess in the wheel. And it also, when you're jumping over curbs and stuff, you don't quite get those harsh peaks that you do. Now, personally, I don't like the force feedback on that. There is a general consensus that it allows you to feel the tire a little bit more. I'm not sure whether that's true. I mean, certainly there's less noise, but whether you can actually feel it more, I'm not sure. But nonetheless, if you want to get rid of some of the more extraneous noise that the force feedback produces in LMU, that's the way to do it. Disable that Steam input and you will find things are just that little bit smoother. These then are my in-game force feedback settings, and again, some of this is personal stuff, but some of this is quite obvious. Obviously, you want the force feedback effect on. I invert my force feedback effect just because I've got a Moser wheel. I'm on a Moser R12 wheelbase, so I have to invert my force feedback settings. You may not need to do that with your particular wheel. Force feedback strength, I'm running it at the moment on 80%. It's 100% through the wheelbase, 80% through the game. This is specific to hypercars. I mean, it does vary from car to car, even within class, but hypercars I tend to run a little bit stronger than GT3s. GT3s I'll have maybe between 60, 65, 70%, something like that, but hypercars I do turn up a little bit. Force feedback smoothing is where it gets a little bit more personal. I did run this at 1 or 2 before the previous update, but now it seems like it's a little bit smoother, so I've just switched that off completely. But if you do find the game a little bit harsh, even if you have used that to disable Steam setting within Steam, then you can flick that up a couple of clicks. I wouldn't recommend going up over 3 though, it just gets a bit too dampened for me personally. Minimum steering torque, I mean, it says there basically it's not to be used for direct drive wheels, it's just more for it's to compensate for static friction of gear and belt wheels, so I don't touch that at all. Collision strength I do have set to 100, but you can turn that down. I mean, you can turn it up if you want to, but I wouldn't recommend it. If you have a particularly strong wheel, you know, over 20 newton meters, you might want to dial that down because, you know, you're going to break your wrists if you hit a wall too hard at the wrong angle. Steering torque sensitivity, again, this is maybe for more lower powered wheels. This is kind of to bring the bottom end up. It's not going to increase the top end of your force feedback. It's to bring those lower forces up slightly so you can feel them through lower strength wheels. Again, I have this set at 100%. It's absolutely fine for me. But if you do want to feel those or increase the feel of some of the more subtle settings, bring them up, you can do. For me, though, it probably just makes it too noisy then. This constant force feedback effect, I'm not quite sure what that is supposed to do, but for me, it just kind of dampens everything and makes everything a little bit muddy. So I just have that turned off, frankly. I'll very quickly also run through just the force feedback that I use in the Moser Pit House software. Obviously, if you don't have a Moser wheel, this might not be of much interest to you. But the main settings in here, again, you can see I'm running it at 100% on the wheelbase, maximum torque output at 100% as well. In advanced settings, I don't run much of these dampenings and frictions, all very little of it, just a bit in with LMU. Games like Race Room and AMS that are already a little bit dampened, and in the case of Race Room, actually a very much dampened force feedback. I run this pretty much completely off. The important settings really are here. Again, with something like Race Room, I probably have this as a straight line at just 100%. But with LMU, just to get rid of some of the noise at the higher end, I do turn down the HF vibration. The curb effects I've got down. In fact, the curb effects I could probably turn them down a little bit further. The ABS vibration, I'd certainly be, there isn't really a setting for that one, but I suppose I could use it between those two and just drag it down a little bit more, because that ABS, when it kicks in some cars at least, is just absolutely brutal. So yeah, I would kind of, because LMU is quite noisy, some of these higher frequencies beyond sort of 25 hertz, I would nudge it down a little bit just to tame the game, just to tame the force feedback a little bit. It does need that, definitely, I think. If you run these all at 100%, I think it just becomes too noisy, to be honest with you. One last thing related to force feedback that I do recommend that you do is if you go into settings and into controls, then into interaction, scroll down to hardware, you'll see reset force feedback here. I would highly recommend binding that to something, either something on your wheel. I've actually got it on one of my shifters. I've got a couple of spare buttons on my shifter that I've got it bound to. At the very least on a keyboard somewhere where you can easily get to it. LMU has, let's say, a quirk where certainly at the start of races, or if you alt-tab out of a race, the force feedback will just vanish. But if you bind this somewhere, have it bound to a button somewhere, you can just, at the click of a button, reset the force feedback, and magically it will come back for you. So I would really recommend it at the moment because LMU doesn't look like they're fixing that bug. It's been around since I started playing 6 months ago, 9 months ago now, and it's still here. So find that force feedback reset button. So there we go then. I hope you enjoyed that little guide through some of the finer points of LMU. If you did, please like the video, consider subscribing for more, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.